Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the No Mustard Podcast. This podcast is brought to you from the purchase of my magazines and art by viewers like you. You can learn more about my work or join the Fast Food Legend newsletter by visiting fastfoodlegend.com. I'd like to introduce you to my guest this week, Matthew Merril. Matthew is a culinary artist who began his career at the age of 11 as a participant on the Food Network show Kids Baking Challenge, where he became a breakout star, leading to the publication of his first cookbook, Teen Baking Challenge. Now a senior at Cornell University, Matthew produces viral cooking videos under the name Matthew in the Kitchen. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So, on today's episode, we're going to look at some pictures of some classic fast food dishes, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. Okay?
Perfect.
Great. I thought we would start here with the Panda Express orange chicken. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
All right. Now, I know that you had a very popular video doing a copycat recipe of this orange chicken, and I saw that you did a few very popular videos all revolving around chicken tenders or chicken nuggets in some way, kind of the same base, different sauce was kind of the general thought. How come you focused so strongly on chicken, these kind of chicken products?
I don't know. I think chicken products are one of those sort of staples in a lot of people's diets. I think they're pretty universally understood as a symbol of what they're really providing. You know, people see a chicken nugget or chicken tender and it's immediately sort of recognizable as almost like a safe food or a baseline food. So something that sort of connects people together in this sort of universally recognizable way.
Were you surprised when this particular copycat recipe took off for you?
I don't think so. I think this was definitely one recipe that I was kind of expecting people to or expecting to resonate with people, just being something that's so widely enjoyed, or appreciated.
When you were having the idea to do copycat fast food recipe, what particularly said, let's do the Panda Express one as opposed to doing some, saucy nuggets or something else?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a nostalgia factor for me, at least with Panda Express, just sort of fond memories after school going to Panda Express and getting just tons of orange chicken. Or, I know they have Panda Express franchises in airports and even like amusement parks. So definitely just a nostalgia factor for me personally.
Oh, that's great. Okay, let's have a look at the next item. This one is extremely popular, and I believe you did a copycat for this as well. This is cane sauce, is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right.
Talk to me about that.
Cane sauce specifically, or just canes
Yeah,
in general?
well, here's what I'd like you to do. Any association you have with cane sauce. You can tell me how you feel when you see the image. You can tell me any memory you have of going to a Cane's. You can tell me a memory of making the video. Any association you have with cane sauce. That's what I'd like to hear about.
I think cane sauce is maybe deceivingly simple. I think people have this connotation that it's connected to the brand in some way, but in reality, it really is just ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together with some like Worcestershire sauce and black pepper. So definitely something that can be recreated easily at home. That being said, I think that it's pretty impressive how they've sort of marketed this product and how it hasn't really been done before by another fast food chicken brand. You know, I think it's cool that they innovated a new sauce and were able to sort of bring it in their portfolio as a company.
What's the difference between cane sauce and like Thousand Island dressing, which is sort of a standard like In-N-Out burger secret sauce, or In-N-Out knockoff secret sauce? What's the key difference?
Honestly, I'm not sure if there is a huge difference. I think Thousand Island probably has some more components to it just in terms of the ingredients, but at least in my recreation of the cane sauce, I'm not sure what they actually do over on their side, but it was pretty bare bones, pretty just standard ketchup, mayo, a little bit of other seasonings and such.
Have you ever bought the big cup of it? Have you?
I didn't actually know that that was a thing you could do. I didn't know that they
Yes.
sold it by the cup.
Yeah, I
That's
think it's
I'm
about
kind of
seven
shocked to
dollars
see
for
that.
the big cup. It's quite popular.
Wow. It's hard to imagine eating that much sauce.
I can't understand why people buy it. That's why I was curious if you had some thoughts on it. Yeah.
I know. I hadn't seen that.
Let's have a look at the next item, the McRib. Tell me all about the McRib.
The McRib. I one of the most famous, I guess, special menu items from McDonald's. I guess there you see two buns and the sort of rib meat with pickles and onions. Um, I actually have tried a McRib once. I had one in high school, I remember. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I think I've had McDonald's products in the past. Definitely not one that I would get again. I think I don't know, I just wasn't it didn't really taste like a rib to me, but I think it's maybe some sort of meat product that's, I guess, designed to look like a rib, but I'm not too sure.
Have you thought about doing a copycat of it in some way?
You know, that is one copycat that I think might be more effort than it's worth. Just because I think to make it sort of gourmet or sort of recreate the idea, it would be like a 15-hour process of like smoking like a sort of a rib or deciding even which, you know, like what style rib you want to do, if it's like St. Louis ribs or, you know, baby back or just, you know, various variety. But one of those, you know, it takes, you know, 30 seconds to get a McRib at McDonald's versus, you know, getting, you know, long process of smoking meat until it falls off the bone and achieving that. And even then, I'm not really sure if they specify which cut of rib it is, so it might be hard to find the exact properties.
Let's look at the next one. Okay, this one's very controversial. I'm going to warn you now, okay? And this is the Taco Bell Gordita Supreme. Tell me about that.
The I don't know if I've ever heard of the Gordita Supreme.
Okay. Talk to me about Taco Bell. Because
Ooh,
I saw
taco.
you did some kind of Crunchwrap video. I saw that.
I recreated the Crunchwrap Supreme. I think I actually went to Taco Bell for the first time to try it. There's not really one near where I was living at the time, so I never actually tried one. So I went out of my way, and yeah, Taco Bell, another fast food restaurant that specializes in very niche um a niche side of the fast food market. I'd say I don't know if it necessarily is the best representation of Latin American cuisine, or I guess I'm not really sure what cuisine they're trying to go for, but nonetheless an interesting variety to add to the range of fast food options.
Well, I think the thing that's so compelling about Taco Bell for so many people, and you're going to know so much more about this than I am, regardless of whether or not you've, experienced the full menu, is that they're able to create so many different dishes with the same core ingredients. I think there's only,
Mm,
a few lettuce, tomato, cheese, beef, and some kind of tortilla, more or less sour cream. And they're able to create such a wide variety of dishes with those same core ingredients. Are there other sort of types of cooking that you can think of that work in the same way?
mm. That's a good question. Types of cooking that use the same ingredients to reflect other types of cuisines. I don't You know, I'm not too sure in my experience. You know, I think you could make an argument that everything is kind of the same core ingredients, just a larger range that you're making into every dish. But I would say the closest thing to Taco Bell, I I would think something with ground beef. You know, I think Taco Bell uses ground beef very in versatile ways. But you know, you think of like a burger. is sort of the same. You can look to many, other sandwiches that are made with ground beef, or, a meatloaf situation versus, yeah, definitely probably something with ground beef, or another maybe like pre-processed, for lack of a better term, protein.
Let's have a look at the next one. So this one was also very popular. This is the Popeyes chicken sandwich. Are you familiar with this one?
I am. I actually remember very vividly when that first came out, actually.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, the Popeyes chicken sandwich, I think definitely made ripples in the food pop culture community. I recall the launch, was very positioned as revolutionary for something that I didn't think was a crazy brand extension. But I remember trying it and actually being very impressed. I enjoyed the taste. I thought um it was a well done take on a chicken sandwich by a fast food restaurant. But yeah, you see it's pretty standard. You got the chicken, mayo, pickles, and the bun, but um definitely designed to be maybe like DoorDash and pack. I just remember getting it from Uber Eats back in the day. But yeah, that only a few experiences. Definitely designed to like compete with Chick-fil-A, I think too, and to sort of in the sort of fast food chicken rivalry going on there.
Out of all of those Chick-fil-A knockoffs, because every chain has one, did you have a personal favorite?
I enjoyed the Popeyes chicken sandwich. I would say it didn't become something that was in my diet. I wouldn't necessarily say that I eat like fast food as like a meal replacement, but definitely something that I enjoy from time to time.
When you're making these videos, like because you're in college and all that kind, you're encountering a lot of people who aren't at your culinary level, right? You're encountering a lot of people who, for this is, and I'm just going to change pictures here before I forget, but you're encountering a lot of people who, for the Popeyes chicken sandwich, would be a staple item. How do you deal with being able to relate to the new people that you're meeting as you're going on in life that are coming from a completely different culinary background as you are?
I mean, I would say that, like, at the end of the day, what really connects us all is food. Everybody has to eat. And I think I come from the lens of like understanding that everybody is coming from a different background, and different um just a completely different culture, even, or so many diverse understandings of food, and where it comes from and how to cook. And I would say that I'm probably the least picky eater ever. I could eat anything. But I think there's a degree to which like being able to cook is definitely like a way to be like self-sustaining and to understand and to like be intentional with what you're eating. But I would say I love to use like food as ways to bring people together, and so I don't know. I think education about food is so important, and it's definitely what I try to study in college and what I'm going to try to do when I graduate. But I don't really find it difficulty because I do think that we can all agree that a McDonald's burger, like, it tastes good. Like, as much as it, has people have their own opinions, but I think if I can agree to them on that level, I would ask that maybe they can hear me out in trying a different cuisine or a different dish that may be a little bit less conventional from where what their understanding, so we could kind of like meet that common ground.
Do you find like a lot of the people you meet have a more limited palate than you do, though?
Um, I don't know. I would say I've had the opportunity to train my palate, which I'm very lucky for. But I would say there's definitely a lot of people that are picky eaters, especially at school. That was definitely a surprise when, a lot of people think, butter noodles and, chicken tenders is sort of like a core um food part of their diet. But I think that I one of my biggest time or dinners that I pride myself on is when my friend said she literally never tried any pasta other than butter noodles, but I made this sort of braised short rib ragu, and she
I
said this is
saw
the
that
first time I've
video.
ever tried anything like this that I enjoyed. So I think a lot of times it comes from maybe like lack of experience or just maybe lack of exposure to the right types of food. Bad cooking is probably one of the biggest ways people think that they don't like a type of cuisine, but really they just haven't had it prepared in the proper way.
It's a very astute observation. Let's talk about these Chick-fil-A waffle fries that people are very religious about. Have you had them?
I've had them. I actually had them on on Sunday, just a few days ago.
How did you get them on a Sunday?
Oh, not on Sunday, on Saturday. That's a good a good catch.
Well,
Um,
some colleges have Chick-fil-A franchises that are open on Sunday every once in a while. So I didn't
we
know.
actually don't. My school doesn't have a Chick-fil-A in the like 50-mile vicinity. So that it was definitely a special treat to get them. I would say a different type of French fry from the rest of the fast food chains. I know that they are prided on being fried in peanut oil and I guess they're cut in a way such that you can tell that there is like a full potato being used. Sometimes you get those little end bits where it's kind of like the chunk of potato. I personally I like that part of the fry. Um but I would say oftentimes people tend to consider these like maybe soggier or less um I guess perfect or standardized in the way you think of other fast food fries. To me that's I actually enjoy Chick-fil-A fries a lot. I think it's a nice deviation from the norm of a classic julienne type fry, but yeah, I mean definitely a different type of fast food fry.
So as a content creator, I'm sure you've encountered this. Everybody does. You're working incredibly hard to make the videos. The pasta ragu dinner party that you talked about being a perfect example. I did see that one. And you're putting this out there, or for another great example is the one where you're teaching people how to make a rotisserie chicken in their dorm room.
Yeah.
And that's great. You're kind of trying to expose people to, hey, it's $10. You can do this yourself with nothing. Here's how I did it. You've got other ones where you're doing the dinner party and you're going on Facebook Marketplace and buying everything really cheap and putting it together. And it's very DIY, which is just wonderful. And I'm sure you've experienced that 90% of the people watching the videos and telling you how great they are and how much they love it are never actually going to go out and do this themselves, even though you're trying to encourage people to do this themselves, to try to wean them off of convenience foods. How do you personally cope with that discrepancy between what you're trying to accomplish and the response you're getting in those situations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it's definitely something that I even have to deal with in my own life. Being in school, I'm spread very thin, and especially trying to handle being a content creator and being a full-time student. I definitely have to like look for ways to short run convenience in my own life. I would say like in terms of getting the message out and getting people to act on this sort of mindset. It's the way that I position it is a gradual change. I think it would be unrealistic to say like let's all never do anything that is more convenient than it is good for our health or for our wellness or the environment or whatnot, but to sort of um almost, I guess, for lack of a better term, like microdose or like introduce people to these concepts or understanding that you can make little changes in your life that actually have can amplify into a bigger impact. And then not only that, but also looking on the other hand that once you make these sort of little changes, your perspective can change. Is has definitely been um something that I've noticed in my own life that I've been able to reflect on social media. So I think the way to mend that discrepancy is to just get people to try. Like I can't convince people or even see the ROI on the other end, but what I can do is to sort of inspire people and convince them that this is fun. It's fun to like find new ways to think about things in your life and to do it in an engaging way that makes people think. Like once it's more about getting people to think than to, get them to actually, make a Doritos Locos taco at home.
Let's have a look at one more image. This is the Costco chicken bake. Tell me about this.
Ooh, the Costco chicken bake. So these are, a beloved staple of the Costco menu, um, particularly for their low price, but it is, I believe, a dough wrapper, sort of like a bread, almost like a hot pocket with chicken and, well, it says it there actually. But yeah, it's one of those, I guess staple deli items at Costco. I tried one for the first time in 2022 when I first saw it on social media. I didn't know that, this was a thing. I'd only been to Costco a handful of times, but I saw people trying it in their car and this sort of like uh style of video that emerged of people, I guess, trying these beloved foods in their car. But I remember being a little underwhelmed. I definitely like to me it sort of read as like a frozen hot pocket, but yeah, I don't know, I don't really understand the hype and the, I guess, excitement around this product. I understand. I think the hot dog, is sort of more of a flagship Costco item where it really is that low cost leader in terms of like their brand strategy. But I mean, the chicken bake, of course, is low price too and offers a lot of sustenance. But I definitely don't. I wouldn't consider it something that I would personally eat, like, if I needed to scrounge a meal, but I do think that the price is kind of unparalleled, it's like, how can they really charge that? I don't know.
Let me ask you this question, and this is going to go back a few generations now, and we're still dealing with it. And I'd like to know how you deal with it. When you present these videos like um, the imitation, the copycat Panda Express orange chicken, like we talked about earlier, you're going to get a lot of comments from people saying, by the time I spend all the money on the ingredients, it's cheaper to just go to Panda Express. Because unlike you, most people aren't that involved with the culinary arts. So they don't have a full spice collection at home. They don't have, cooking oil ready to go. Most people, I would assume, watching your videos don't even know how to dispose of cooking oil because when you're younger, especially in America, and you don't cook, it's all new to them. And there's such a barrier to entry that's perceived by people, young people, when they're just starting out. I remember my version of it from my generation, and I've seen my friends who had kids, and their kids go through their version of it. But times have changed. We didn't have DoorDash. We didn't have Temu. We didn't have Amazon. We didn't have any of that stuff. We didn't have, when I was your age, we didn't have dollar stores. So everything was so much different. How do you deal with that problem now in the world now?
Yeah, I think that point it's something that I think about a lot in terms of this understanding that this baseline of convenience is the norm or should be the norm in a way where like that is the replacement for your diet and shopping needs are these establishments. I think I would first say that I'm very lucky that I've had the like education and opportunity to be fortunate enough to like have the knowledge to cook and have the ability to like buy ingredients, which is not a luxury that everybody has, which definitely like creates this discrepancy too, and this like sort of necessitates a lot of these convenient options. But I think yeah, I guess to answer the question, I I I I don't know. Or can you actually repeat the question?
So let's say you're around 21 or 22, right? Let's say I'm 16 or 17. I'm headed off to college for the first time. I don't have anything. I watch your video. Okay, I'd like to make my own Panda Express. That looks pretty cool. Panda Express, just a regular plate's about $11. And I'm watching your video and I go on Amazon and I'm like, okay, the cast iron skillet is 20. If I DoorDash the smallest cooking oil and I don't know which one to get. It's another $8. Then chicken, it's like 2 pounds and I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm probably spending another $10 on that. I'm sure people message you this stuff and say, so what do you tell? Like, what would you tell me? What do you tell people when they message you that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the dorm room series that I did was very I guess tried to alleviate those questions to show I guess creative ways to approach cooking. Yes, like a culinary background is very helpful, but like truly, if you have a heat source and you know, vessels and maybe a cutting board, you can make anything anywhere. And I do firmly believe that. What I think is the challenge is the sort of, yeah, that there is a barrier to entry. Um, but when you have that, you know, fully stocked spice cabinet or you have those kitchen essentials, you can start to understand how to piece together how to like where you can make substitutes. Like you don't need a cast iron skillet to fry chicken. Obviously, like there's certain safety protocols that would make that like a good choice, but you can definitely use what you have on hand or even think of other solutions like baking the chicken if you don't want to put it on the stove in oil or um and which is why I think social media is a powerful resource as much as it has its as downsides is that for me that's how I learned how to cook. My mom opened up to me and told me she'd never cooked a steak in her life. You know, I didn't really grow up with, you know, the typical home cooked meal. I mean, my grandma loved to cook, but I learned everything that I know from social media when I was a kid, you know, and so that I think ultimately is the tool that gets rid of that barrier. So I'd say, you know, you just have to try for the first few times, and like, yes, there is that sort of financial barrier, but if you are willing, I think it's a good investment for your future and your health. And I think investments in your health are never one to, you know, it's like more important than a vacation in some ways. It's more important than that nice like jacket or that nice hat that you wanted.
Matthew, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Again, find Matthew on pretty much all social media platforms under Matthew in the Kitchen. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye bye.